There's a harsh truth most people refuse to acknowledge. The disrespect you experience in life isn't always about what others do to you. More often than not, it's about what you're unconsciously doing to yourself. Every day, through subtle habits and behaviors, you might be sending signals that invite others to treat you poorly. You're broadcasting weakness, where you should project strength, uncertainty, where you should demonstrate clarity, and desperation, where you should embody self-possession. The ancient Stoics understood this fundamental principle better than anyone. They knew that respect isn't something you demand or beg for. It's something you command through the way you carry yourself, the boundaries you set, and the unshakable inner fortress you build within your own mind. Today, we're going to examine 4 destructive habits that silently erode your dignity and teach you how Stoic wisdom can help you reclaim the respect you deserve. The first habit that destroys your self-respect is the relentless need for approval from others. You've probably caught yourself doing this more times than you'd like to admit. You change your opinions based on who's in the room. You soften your stance to avoid conflict. You seek validation for decisions you know are right, just to feel accepted. This constant approval seeking is like bleeding in shark-infested waters. People can sense your desperation, and instead of respecting you more, they respect you less. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations that we suffer more in imagination than in reality, and nowhere is this more evident than in our fear of others' disapproval. When you live your life seeking the approval of others, you're essentially handing over your power to people who may not even have your best interests at heart. The Stoics believe that the only approval that truly matters is your own conscience aligned with virtue. Seneca wisely observed that nothing, to my way of thinking, is a better proof of a well-ordered mind than a man's ability to stop just where he is and pass some time in his own company. The moment you stop seeking external validation and start living according to your own principles, people begin to notice something different about you. They see someone who can't be easily swayed, manipulated, or controlled. The second habit that invites disrespect is your failure to establish and maintain clear boundaries. You say yes when you mean no. You allow people to interrupt you, dismiss your ideas, or treat your time as if it has no value. You tolerate behavior that makes you uncomfortable because you're afraid of seeming difficult or unreasonable. But here's what the Stoics understood that most people don't. When you don't set boundaries, you're not being kind or accommodating. You're being weak, and weakness invites exploitation. Epictetus, who knew something about boundaries having been a slave himself, taught that no one can hurt you without your permission. Every time you fail to speak up when someone crosses a line, you're giving them permission to do it again. You're teaching them that your comfort, your time, and your dignity are negotiable. The Stoics practiced what they called the discipline of desire, which meant clearly distinguishing between what was up to them and what wasn't. Your boundaries fall squarely in the category of things that are up to you. When you consistently enforce your boundaries with calm determination, people learn to respect them. They begin to see you as someone who values themselves enough to demand proper treatment. The third destructive habit is over-explaining and excessive apologizing. You've probably noticed how some people can make a simple request without justifying themselves, while others feel compelled to provide a dissertation for why they need something. If you find yourself constantly explaining your decisions, apologizing for taking up space, or feeling guilty for having needs, you're unconsciously signaling that you don't believe you deserve what you're asking for. The Stoics value clarity and directness in communication. Marcus Aurelius advised to speak both to save time and to avoid saying anything unnecessary. When you over-explain, you dilute your message and project insecurity. When you apologize excessively, especially for things that don't warrant an apology, you're training people to see you as someone who's always in the wrong. Seneca understood that our words reveal our character, and rambling, uncertain speech reveals a rambling, uncertain mind. The most respected leaders throughout history have shared one common trait. They can communicate their needs, decisions, and boundaries with crystal clarity and without unnecessary justification. This doesn't mean being rude or dismissive. It means being confident enough in your own judgment that you don't need to convince everyone else of your worthiness. The fourth habit that destroys your dignity is reacting emotionally to disrespect instead of responding with composed strength. When someone treats you poorly, your immediate instinct might be to get angry, defensive, or hurt. You might raise your voice, make accusations, or try to hurt them back. But here's what the Stoics knew that transforms everything. Your emotional reaction is exactly what disrespectful people are hoping for. They want to see you lose control because it confirms their power over you. Epictetus taught that it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. When you respond to disrespect with emotional volatility, you're giving the other person exactly what they want. You're showing them that they can manipulate your inner state with their behavior. Marcus Aurelius faced countless challenges as emperor, yet he wrote about maintaining his composure even in the face of betrayal and opposition. He understood that dignity isn't about never being challenged or disrespected. It's about how you handle yourself when those challenges arise. The most powerful response to disrespect is often no response at all, or a response so measured and controlled that it immediately shifts the power dynamic back in your favor. Now that you understand these four destructive patterns, let's explore how Stoic philosophy can help you rebuild your self-respect and command the respect of others. The foundation of all Stoic practice is the development of inner stillness. This isn't about becoming emotionally numb or disconnected. It's about cultivating such a strong sense of self that external circumstances can't shake your core. When you develop this inner fortress, something remarkable happens. You stop needing others to validate your worth because you've learned to validate it yourself. You stop fearing confrontation because you know that your self-worth isn't dependent on everyone liking you. You stop over-explaining because you trust your own judgment enough to stand behind your decisions without needing everyone else's approval. The Stoics also understood the incredible power of silence and measured response. There's a reason why the most respected people in any room are often the ones who speak the least, but choose their words carefully. When you develop the discipline to pause before reacting, to consider your response rather than just blurting out your first emotional impulse, people begin to hang on your words. They start to see you as someone who doesn't waste energy on petty reactions, but reserves their power for what truly matters. Seneca wrote extensively about the power of strategic silence, understanding that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. Perhaps most importantly, the Stoics taught the principle of living according to virtue rather than seeking validation from others. When you shift your focus from what others think of you to what kind of person you're becoming, everything changes. You start making decisions based on what's right rather than what's popular. You start setting boundaries based on your values rather than your fears. You start responding to challenges based on your principles rather than your emotions. This shift from external validation to internal virtue is what the Stoics called the path to true freedom. The choice is yours. You can continue living with these four destructive habits, unconsciously inviting disrespect and wondering why people don't value you the way you deserve. Or you can embrace the ancient wisdom of the Stoics and begin the process of reclaiming your dignity. Stop seeking approval from others and start living according to your own principles. Set clear boundaries and enforce them with calm determination. Communicate with clarity and confidence, without over-explaining or excessive apologies. Respond to disrespect with composed strength rather than emotional reactivity. These aren't just habits to adopt. They're the building blocks of an unshakable character that commands respect without demanding it. The Stoics knew that true power comes not from controlling others, but from mastering yourself. When you master these four areas of your life, you become the kind of person that others naturally respect, not because they have to, but because they can't help themselves. Your presence alone will communicate strength, dignity, and self-possession. That is the ultimate goal of Stoic philosophy, and it's within your reach, starting today.